You want to pull up the tier list?
Yeah. Do that.
All right, Zabaton is here.
Welcome.
Still
am I live?
waiting. How's it going, man?
Not bad, not bad. It's a bit late for me, but I did choose this time, so I guess I'm doing all right. How are you guys?
Fair enough. Still waiting on Clinton. He is in the Discord, so he'll show up here forthwith, I imagine.
Doing okay. We are 18 hours into the stream, so it's going well.
You guys have actually been doing, well, at least one of you have been online like for the whole 18 hours, right?
Brandon has been on the whole time.
Yep.
Don't know how you do it.
I'm not sure either, actually.
That's a lot. I could not. I get too sleepy.
I also get too sleepy, which is why I don't.
Not gonna lie, there's been a couple times now that I've caught myself closing my eyes while playing the game.
No, that's never good.
At least there's not too much left.
No. The worst part is I have a work meeting to go to right after this.
Oh, no. That'll be rough.
Best of luck.
Thanks.
All right, so Chand is here. How's it going, man?
Oh, I probably should transition.
Good. Actually woke up on time.
Congratulations. Good job. All right. So Brandon.
Yeah, I need to share my screen, don't I?
Yes, if you could share your screen. All right. I am going to pull up. There we go.
Let's kick us off, Colton.
All right. Where are you?
Why are we here?
Well,
it's the top of the hour.
It is the top of the hour. There's your stream. I couldn't find your stream for a minute. Okay. So it is top of the hour. We are here raising money for the Project for Awesome, which is a charity event that takes place every year. The money that we raise is going to be spread amongst a lot of charities, including Save the Children and Partners in Health, which are working to better health outcomes for children in the developing world. They're working right now on tuberculosis testing and treatment, access to that in impoverished nations, as well as a Center for Maternal Excellence, a Center for Maternal Excellence, at a children's hospital in Sierra Leone. So that's what we're raising money for. We've cleared the $800 threshold, and once we clear 1,000, we sorted this out last night. This might be news to a couple of you. So once we hit $1,000, we are going to send around some Weiss cards that everyone who participated in the stream is going to sign. We're going to get that figured out. Probably something to do with Worlds. We're going to borrow Worlds as a venue for getting these cards signed so that we can get them out to all of the people who have donated to the stream so far. But yeah, that is what's happening. That's where we're at. We are just under $200 short of that $1,000 goal. We'd love to get there in the next 5 hours and 54 minutes. All right. So it is tier list time. So real quick, let's introduce our people, and we'll start with Zabaton. Ken, do you want to introduce yourself and tell people maybe who might not be familiar with who you are?
Yep. Hey, I am Zabaton or Ken. I think most people just know me as Ken. You may know me as one of the Weiss Schwarz casters for Bushrod Rumble Online, the AO region, or as one of the casters for Worlds 2022. Last year was 2022, right? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Sorry, I'm a bit fuzzy because of the time. Yeah. Otherwise, I've been playing the game for a little bit over a decade now, so you may have seen my name on social media or whatnot. But yeah, I'm pretty happy to be here to join in on this, tier list making and what's to follow. So thanks for having me on.
Next, Chicago's own Clinton Chan. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Clinton Chan, multi-time worlds competitor. Actually won one, and I've won a whole bunch of regionals. That's about it.
Fair enough.
Only.
And then finally, Carmen from Pittsburgh and Strictly Broken. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Carmen. I'm part of the Pittsburgh Weiss Schwarz channel as well as on Strictly Broken with Clinton. And yeah, that's about it. Popped a couple regionals, one nationals one time. That's about it.
All right, so let's get this underway. We have chosen the decks that topped in a BCS event this year, as well as a couple that didn't, but are still worth mentioning. So we're going to start from the top. We'll start with Quints. We have 3 different Quints lists to talk about. 8 salvage, 8 standby, and 8 choice. 8 salvage, 5 total tops with a win. 8 standby, 4 tops and a win. 8 choice head, 4 top 8s, including 2 top 4s. I think the story of these decks is probably, I mean, for a lot of these decks, it's going to require recognizing that the meta is different now because of the ban list. These decks were definitely influenced by the presence of Alice in the meta, but now that Alice is, for all intents and purposes, gone, which of these 3 is the best for Quints going forward, and where do they stack up going into the winter and into Springfest? Anyone who wants to start can jump in.
Sorry, just before we actually decide which one is the best, can we have a loose idea of what each tier means to us? So
Sure.
we're on the same page when we say S tier, A tier, etc.
Sure. So usually what Brandon and I will do when we're making a tier list is we'll divide it kind of by expectation. So an S tier deck is a deck that we expect to be a Worlds competitor. We expect that if this can win Worlds, this is one of the best decks in the format. That's the expectation. The next tier down is one where we expect maybe it might not win at the very top tables, but we expect a top. Like if it tops Worlds, that is, if it doesn't top Worlds, it might be a disappointment for someone running that deck. The B tier is, in a Worlds context, it could show up. In a Regionals context, it has a chance to top. Like it's definitely not one of the top decks, but like in the right hands, at the right event, it can top more than just like once over the course of a season. Like it's expected to it will probably get more than one top over the course of a long season, all things being equal. And then C is it has an outside chance. It's definitely more of a rogue tier, but definitely has, it's got enough pieces or a consistent enough game plan to counter things that are at the top of the meta, or again, like in the hands of a really good player. But it would be a surprise to a certain extent to see that kind of deck top at a major event. And then D tier is if it tops, you kind of go, wow. It's a deck that's borderline unplayable in the current format. Like it's probably in the grand scope of Weiss decks, it's fine. Like you could take it to locals and probably do well, but it's very unlikely to top a major event. So what we have on the board right now are the decks that topped events in BCS. So if it had a single top 8, it's here. So this is kind of like a way to look forward at like, okay, these decks, this is how they did last year. Going forward, here's what we expect. And we also threw in a couple of decks that did not top in BCS, but maybe have more of a window now that there's a ban list or ban list changes or whatever. There are reasons why we can expect this deck to perform better than it did in BCS. So does that make sense? Does that seem reasonable to everybody?
Yeah, sounds good. I like the
Yep.
guidelines.
All right, so let's start with Quince. Who wants to take the lead on that conversation?
I thought last year or this current season, almost all three decks are all on the same tier, which was before the ban list, where they're all equally like surprisingly competitive, could make top eights, but I didn't actually expect them to win a
Mhm.
major event. Because these days now events are so many rounds, I don't think they're the most consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it kind of here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. I think that's pretty solid. I think out of the three, 8 Salvage is currently in the best position. Because it is so consistent by comparison. I think it's the most consistent of the three. It gets whatever it wants into its hand. Basically, at all times, it has 9 cards in hand. Top end that you almost always at least double. Very common to triple. And it wins board on defense against anything that has an even remotely normal level 1 game too, because that backup allows you to get additional pluses and then loop that combo again and again. You get all this free text just for playing cards with certain names. That's a Quince thing in general, but I think 8 Salvage is the one that's in the best position to make the most of that because Alice was the difficult matchup for it. It had to deal with Alice. It had ways to deal with Alice, but they weren't super elegant. And now that Alice is out of the way, I think that 8 Salvage can really shine again. I would put 8 Salvage in the A tier personally.
I really like the Ichika deck for the current meta actually over the other two. I like that it has a real mid game strategy. Unlike 8 Door, I think 8 Door has a really bad time sort of bridging between 1 and 3 comparatively to a lot of the other things in the meta that are putting out really disgusting things at level 2. Notably like Slime previously, Alice doing it at 1. But, now that that's banned, we still have stuff like Overlord. I think that Ichika just having, that event for that, just, the random bounce and stuff like that, as well as that mid-game early play strategy and a serviceable finisher to back it up with just the raw hard quality of Quince, kind of edges it over the other two right now. I feel like Nina's definitely the one most lacking. I know it has a couple tops right now. But that deck will probably come back if it's never hit. Or the hit as it is, it'll eventually claw its way back, as standby decks often do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what y'all's opinions are on like the Ichika thing, but I feel like Ichika, for the most part, the more people I talk to, people that I know are leaning more towards Ichika nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that your point about the mid game, especially that it has it's a little bit better to bridge that 1 to 3 as opposed to 8 Salvage. I think is definitely a very valid point there, as well as its potential to deal with board based decks. And I think it's really dependent on how heavy board based decks are in the meta, which right now I believe they are.
And it has an effect that helps you cancel, and if you can cancel, it's really, really strong in the middle.
I think I actually really like the spot where it's at right now. I think it's very much like that middle. I think right there might be.
Yeah, I mean, first thing on the board, it's always hard to put it exactly. We can jostle it,
and we can tweak it. I think, like especially because Quince is kind of, I think, for a lot of people, right on the AB line.
Yeah.
I think we all generally agree it's like B+ to A-.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at for sure.
With no major differences.
Yeah, and we can move those up and down as we need to.
Yeah.
Arifureta. I know at least 3 people in this conversation really like the 2 Soul level 1. I don't know where Chan and Zabaton are on this. What do you guys think of the Arifureta?
I was only really looking at the metagame for the BCSs, which are in my country, of which the last one was, I think, just a little bit before Arifureta. So I didn't actually think too much about Arifureta, but I'm personally not a huge fan of 2 soul combos at level 1. In the sense that obviously it's powerful if you can resolve it, but it seems to always come with the
caveat that if you don't have your 2 soul at level 1, then like the output you have in damage is really different, and your game plan is like really the difference in output between your like maximum value and your minimum value, I feel like, is quite big compared to say a 1k1 where the difference is only like 1 soul here, whereas it's 2 soul per swing. So I'm a bit uncomfortable with that in general, but at the same time I'm not like hugely acquainted with the deck, so I will kind of leave it up to you guys.
So
a
I
massive
personally
believer.
needed like an hour when I was in Houston for eating lunch with Riaz for him to explain to me how this deck works and his theories behind it. And he personally loved it. And every time I watch the game, I think it's really swingy, or either it works perfectly and everything goes right. It's really great, and when it doesn't, it's actually super awful.
So it sounds about what I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
That's my fault. I'm the one who turned Riaz onto Ari Ferreira. So I'll take responsibility. I'm pretty high on the deck personally. I think that there's a lot of things you can do to mitigate not having that climax. Specifically, the Hajime that's like pay 2, send another character to clock, grab a climax from grave. That card's really good for ensuring your climax at level 1. As well as that set has a spammable check 3 brainstorm that everyone forgets exists. There's a lot of cards to safety net you for hitting your climax at level 1, more than a lot of other sets have. But yeah, when you whiff, you guys are right. Absolutely, the deck blows up. But I think that I think that there's something I don't want to get too far into it because we are time boxed here for this. I think generally all Weiss Schwarz decks that are 1k1 decks that play a level 1 combo really do, when they don't resolve their combo, fall apart and destroy themselves. So, some more than others. Ari Ferreira is definitely on the more part than others. But I think the disparity between that, I think when we look at decks that are maybe a little bit more in or aggressive focused, we kind of like fault them a little more for something that's like normal to the game for 1k1 decks. So I'm a little bit higher on Ari Ferreira, but I could see it because people are not really believing in it. I could see it being like high B.
So,
But
so I have a question, as
yeah.
for someone who plays that deck. When you plan out your turns, like, do you have to strategize or have to be flexible, thinking if my opponent cancels or don't cancels, and how to set things up?
Yeah, you do. There's definitely some overhead there in planning out your turn. Usually I goes like, okay, well, they're gonna cancel once in 8 to 9 damage, provided you double, triple combo, right? If they're gonna cancel once, that means you're gonna +2 move 4 cards, and that's sort of how I plan out my turn. It's like a worst case scenario; they only cancel once. But the upside of the deck is, a lot of these decks that play like this with the 2 soul, they get to go, oh well, my opponent eats it, and like then I'm so far ahead. The problem with those decks in the past, and a lot of decks that have tried this strategy, is then you have no resources yourself, and you can't do anything to actually close the game. Where Ari Ferreira is a little bit different, is that the finisher combo, the Shea, is like a run on fumes combo. You can like double combo that with absolutely no resources at all. Like 2 cards in hand, draw a clock, like crap out your whole board, go for double combo. So Ari Ferreira can actually close games when its opponent eats garbage, and you're really far ahead in damage. So I think that's something there. So I usually plan for like 1 cancel, right, on those turns, and then like take the extra stuff as gravy from that point going forward. Because you have other tools for deck control, like you can play the event, you can play the spammable check 3, things like that. Because you generate so much stock even on 1 cancel a turn, like a stock charge 2.
Yeah, I feel good about Arthurita and B tier. Like, I think the potential for the potential with it is just so high. I do think it's after Quince, but like that could change. Beyond give it like if it gets some results, I would have no issues moving it further up the tier.
I'll let Riaz win Worlds with it. I'm not going to argue here.
I think B sounds right, yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Adventure Time. Mostly. So we're seeing like we've seen the reason there are two X's on there is because there were two decks that topped. They're both very different. One was on the choice top end. One was standby salvage. I still think that the choice top end is really solid. And now that there's no Alice to contend with, again, Adventure Time doesn't have to play into all that removal stuff that it does have access to, but it doesn't have to play it anymore. It can play a little more of a streamlined game. 2 weeks ago, I would have said this is definitely D tier, but it finds ways, and it had two tops late in the season, and especially now that Alice is gone, it seems to be moving up a little bit. I think the question is it C or D? What do you guys think?
I think they're both very similar.
I think for Worlds, I'd still put it at D. I do agree that the level 3 finisher, Jake and Finn and Jake, I forgot the order, is quite potent. Since whenever it came out, but at the same time, I don't feel like the rest of the card pool really provides the legs that you want that top end to really stand on. Like, oftentimes I feel like playing that finisher, is going into your opponent's like mid to late level 2, and it's a bit unreliable whether you have the finisher, the resources, whether you have the reach, whether you have more than 2 copies, etc., etc. And if you want to stock up in that set, well, that's an additional color and 2 discards and a 1-soul beater that's stuck on your board. So yeah, I feel like my primary issue with Adventure Time is not so much the finisher, but just that the fact that everything else in the deck doesn't really let the finisher shine as much as you want it to. So I'd probably put it at D.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The mid game's always been the issue with Adventure Time, and trying to figure out what the mid game was going to be was always an issue with Adventure Time. We have to move quickly, so moving on. Avatar. Most of the lists that top, there were 11 tops, 6 top 4s, no wins though. 8 tops for Toph Azula. Like, I don't think we can put it in the. I don't think we can't put it S tier, obviously, because it just is. It's not closing once it gets into top 8. It's doing well enough for clearly like AB consideration. The Sokka has been decent, but not cracked. I think I think it's a pretty fair assessment. It's been good, but it hasn't been great necessarily. What do you guys think? It feels like Avatar's just too inconsistent. That's where I'm at on it. It feels like, and like watching it play, it feels like sometimes it just has games where just like the whole thing falls apart. It never gets its engine together, and it's just like throwing cards at the board hoping that good things happen.
I think enough people play it now where I expect it to top 8. I don't have the greatest impressions of it, but people swear by it, and a lot of people playing it, and it has more than it averages like at least 1 top, like most of these events. So yeah. I would give it the respect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
That seems reasonable.
Regardless of my own opinion, I feel like statistically it's just likely to be in the top 8.
Okay, so from what I'm hearing from everybody's kind of more here, but it's like on the top.
I think A is fair for Avatar.
Based on the players that will be playing it and its damage potential, I think A is reasonable. Personally, I think that I don't know. I have a pretty hot take on Atla. I think this deck's garbage. But
so everyone here is actually not that.
I don't love it, but I have to respect Christian Jarbacker's gonna play it, and he's a guaranteed top 8.
Exactly. That's where I'm at. All these good players are playing it, but my whole take on it is I think this deck is literally just Gura, but it's more engaging to play than Gura. So everyone who loves playing it has gaslit themselves into thinking that it's a good deck because it's more engaging to play, whereas Gura is literally like falling asleep at the wheel. But they do exactly the same thing.
I was kind of hoping that you guys would like teach me more about Avatar, so I would be like,
there's nothing to teach.
What exactly?
Trust me, man. The way I've seen this deck win, it has nothing to do with the deck, and I've sat across from the best players playing it and the most middling players playing it. And let me tell you, the way this deck wins has almost nothing to do with the deck itself. It's like good pilots playing a good deck. It has a lot of damage potential. fine, but it's just Gura with extra steps. I think it's a harder to pilot, more engaging to pilot Gura. All it is.
That's fair, and I think that I think you're right. I think a lot of what makes Avatar work is the pilot. Like a lot of good players are playing Avatar. When you're sitting across from a good player on Avatar, you might have a problem.
Yeah,
But
I mean
the
it's
rank
scary
and
that you can
file,
die from mid-level to like any deck with like an ultra finisher.
yeah. Like if you sit
Very
across
good
from
point from
Avatar
the
round
chat.
1 through
It is
4,
less
it's
investment.
if you sit across from Avatar round 1 through 4, it's a lot less scary than 5 through 7 or 5 through 8.
It's like I feel like it's like the 1K1 Gura decks almost. It's just like hiding behind the fake standby, like that it doesn't really use. It feels like choice pants Gura, but with again extra steps, but far more engaging and interesting to pilot.
Fair. Azure Lane, cats. Cats are good. Are cats top 8 good? I'll let y'all hash this one out. I don't have strong opinions on Azure Lane other than
I
Herder.
don't like this deck compared to ARI. I think it's strictly worse than ARI at what it does, but other people have the converse opinion. But
It has a really strong first 3 turns. That's
Oh,
what
yeah.
I'll say about
Oh
that.
yeah.
It won
Oh
a-
yeah.
It won a WGP Neo standard the other weekend though, didn't it? 8 bar, I think, in Japan.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Slam,
yeah.
slam, slam.
I don't actually know that much about the intricacies, but yeah, the other
8
game's
bar.
solid. But yeah, it was 8 bar, that one. It has this. Yeah, it has this weird thing where you can hit big in both damage and power at level 0, but because you're hitting high damage, if that lands, then like your big power kind of stops being as useful as you want it to be, I guess. But I think
you want your opponent to cancel at 0, so you're like your 5k cats just sit there and then crack.
I think the best case scenario is like
yeah,
like your opponent eats 1 of your 3 swings of 3. They're stuck at like 0-5 next turn, and then you swing 3 times and they eat all of them. They're like, wow, they're on 2-1 or 2-0 or something. It's definitely the best case. But obviously you have minimal control over that. But I think the deck is fine, probably like B tier.
Yeah, I'd say B tier. I think I do have it below Arifureta as well for now. But again, like this is one of those things where like if
I mean it's all in the same tier.
It's Soul Rush. Like I mean Soul Rush just kind of works. Bang Dream, I don't think we have to talk about Bang Dream too much. It's I think it's pretty clearly D tier. Had the worst rep to top ratio of anything that got a top. Of more got multiple tops, I should say. Like it's just not there until it gets more support. It's not big enough to hold board, not powerful enough to close from deep into 2. Like its mid game is fine. Like it's all fine. Bang Dream's not a bad set, but it needs more support to be relevant again in a meta context, I think.
Yeah, it's D tier. Not much to talk about.
I think the level 3 combo being like a survival piece, but only comes out at level 3 is a little bit at odds.
Imagine if that cost me.
Sorry, I think someone in chat asked if I'm going to be at Worlds this year. I'll just say that I'm not qualified for Worlds because I did not play in any BCSs this season, but I may or may not be in Japan. I will see you there if you are there.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go to DAO.
DAO. 2 different DAO lists. We have the 8-book list that Brandon just piloted on the stream. This is Chairman's list. Chairman is great. And I think the deck is about as maxed out as you're going to get for this 8 DAO package, or this 8-book DAO package. But I don't think it has the tools to compete with the really, really good stuff. I don't know, Brandon, you piloted it. You tell me what you think.
So I think it's actually surprisingly consistent with what it does. I think it actually has power to step over things, but I think that at the same time, there's also very much a threshold of power that's necessary, and I think other decks can step over that at this point in time. But I think that there's enough pieces there, enough consistency that can kind of work its way to do some things. But I think that there are decks that are outshining it at the moment.
Did you guys get a chance to watch Chairman's video on the deck?
I have not.
Okay, yeah. like most of his decks that you see that he's playing that might look a little strange. If like he goes through a lot of them on the videos, not every single one, but like a lot of them that he does videos for on Chessus or his own channel. The deck was like a pretty hard read on what people are trying to do. He was really trying to leverage the Shinobu to stop people's things from going off. So like stopping Ame from resolving for getting the stock charge for Gura, things like that. Were a lot of tech pieces in the deck to facilitate like the read that he was trying to make, and it worked out very well for him. He's very good at doing that. He's a very good player at like finding like a niche in like a meta, and he goes to so many things. He's got a lot of experience in like making those reads, especially like going through so many tournaments in NA. So I think him piloting it was like a very like genius like read on what he did. That in the deck itself, I mean, it's data live, card quality's high.
Until I saw his list, I did not know this set had a stock swap, and I have it maxed.
Oh yeah. From the extra booster, right? Like
the yellow Kurumi.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would be surprised, but like I think it's a quintessential rogue deck because that's why he played it. So
I think that's what like the C tier is really useful for, is like decks that need to be in the right hands, but when they're in the right hands, they are powerful.
The other one, I think we just drop it.
I agree.
I assume that's just coterie into origami, slam, go, cards.
Yeah. From what I can actually tell, it looked like it was one person 3 different times making top 8.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting.
Right? Oh. But it was the same deck.
To Avis's website I go. I gotta look at this.
Right? There were 2 different codes, but it had the same deck name.
2 different codes.
And then there was like minor changes between them.
Just gonna
doubt. While you guys are looking that up, Carmen has played Chainsaw Man quite a bit in JP, right?
I have. Not as much as I probably should have before WGP, but enough.
I'm just comparing Aki with origami, and I'm just like thinking of like how little I trust Aki to actually end the game, and I can't imagine myself playing origami with
with minus 1 to 4 additional surveils on the bottom of the deck. I mean, this deck to me from a bot like does look like cards. It's like choice into pants. You leverage the origami being cheap by using chip, the minus 3 soul event, and then they have the new My Little Cedo, which is like a 2/0 like toolboxy kind of card that can increase their reach, which is probably how they're offsetting the origami not being very great, because it can give just pay 1 burn 1 when you tap a character, pay 1 burn 1. So they're like kind of chipping out before they go with the origamis for turn. Doesn't look like anything too crazy here. Using a lot of some of the same tools the chairman was mentioning, like on attack, double drop search. That card's nuts.
And I think Steve's mentioning in the comments that it looks like it was Dominic who was doing it.
Yep, lots of pings.
Yep.
Makes sense. Event pings, origami pings, pings.
All right. In that case, do we want to bump that up to C tier?
I mean, if we're gonna give chairman for his one chance, if this person's done it 3 times, we gotta give him the benefit of the doubt.
That seems reasonable to me.
Seems only fair.
Danmachi's a weird one. Because it's like it's almost good, but its top end isn't.
Is this deck doing anything right
so
now?
True.
It like kills Murin sometimes if everything goes right? That's like it.
So I think one thing to note is I think every solid advantage combo that's played in like a good deck right now is like more than a +1. Like for example, Itsuki is like you get more up to 3 cards, spider scanning 1. What's its name? Nino is with combos on a standby, so get the card off the standby and you also get the salvage. Ifreda is like a +2 or 3, etc. This thing is always a +1 at best, and then you have to like mill your deck and do this other stuff, and
you have to like walk on a tightrope basically all the time to play this deck, and
It's
I
a
don't think
lot
he
of
has any
work,
strengths
not
or
a lot of
anything else.
payoff.
Yeah,
If
pretty
you
much.
cancel it, and you draw your climax every turn, things are going great. If you
Yeah.
miss a turn of combo, you fall apart.
Yeah.
And also
No,
these days, there's not board-based decks at like level 1, so I'm not sure what
Yeah.
this deck is good against anymore.
Yeah.
Or the board-based decks that exist are literally cheating, like Slime and
Mhm.
Overlord. Like,
Yeah.
as quote unquote cheating, just really strong.
No, I
Yes.
like
I
it's
totally agree.
Danmachi 2 would make this a whole lot more interesting, but right now it still needs more. It just needs more pieces.
Mhm.
Like it wants to refresh 8 out of 28. There are decks that do that, and there are decks that do that exact. There are decks that have Danmachi's game plan and are just better at them, and we'll get there. Gun Gale.
D tier.
D tier, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. But yeah,
I can't put it in anything higher than D if I'm putting GG.
yeah,
DD
no, that's
and
fair. It's
E.
here because it got a top. Congrats to the person who topped with it. But yeah, no, Gun Gale does
Yeah.
it does not hold up very well in a modern context. Guilty Gear.
Rogue tier.
Yeah.
Gonna
Rogue,
spend
probably,
most of my time reading their cards if I sit across from them.
Yeah, I just prepped the set review, so I like read everything like through the set, and I could not come up with something off the top of my head looking at the cards. There's a lot of really cool things, but I had to actually sit down with that and like look at a bunch of things and try to come up with something. I don't think there's an obvious like direction other than like Ram looks really good. Like that's about it.
Guilty Gear
I'll
feels a
just
lot
say
like
that-
Avatar felt when it first dropped, where it's like people are still trying to solve it. So I think that Guilty Gear has the potential to be quite good, but I think it has to be figured out first.
I will
That
also
might
say it continues the trend of like the
Guilty
modern
Gear.
set issue where it doesn't have stock swap and it has a really expensive nerfed Fumio.
Also, the level 3 soul is kind of like a weaker rondo from Guilty D side, right?
Yeah, very
Also,
rondo.
if you look at it like altogether, yeah. I'll just say there's like multiple pairs of cards in Guilty Gear Strive which do the same thing, and I don't think it's coincidental that Bushiroad is looking for card designers right now. So
That's fair. Yeah.
anyway, Grisaya, I think we should put in DT.
Yep, Grisaya is bad. I'm gonna skip. Grisaya is bad.
Yeah,
I mean,
doesn't-
Grisaya is bad.
Its niches. Time has passed it by. Unfortunately.
Hololive. So we got two different Hololive lists. We've got Azkigura and we've got 8 stand or 3, excuse me, because we got Azkigura, we got 8 standby, and we got Kanata Marine. Kanata Marine has really been coming on strong lately because the Alice ban really opened up the board for Kanata to be really good again. And for it to be able to do its level 1 thing without having to worry about crashing into an 11k wall. I still think that Gura is your deck of choice here. Like I think Gura has to be S tier just based on 12 tops.
Can I preface something into this really quickly with the Gura deck?
Yeah.
The Gura Hololive deck is the quote unquote worst top tier deck I've ever seen playing this game.
Okay.
Because you're literally just playing a whole bunch of random cards that kind of do something with soul triggers with a powerful top end, and getting to the top end is a struggle.
Mhm.
This is like the standby pants deck,
Yeah.
like the traditional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that struggle is precisely why I've been playing it with a level 1 combo, and it feels so much better to me playing it with that. Like, I finished 12th in Chicago with that
Cali
list.
combo.
What's
Yeah,
that?
the Mori combo.
Yeah, the level 1 Cali on the choice. It mills through the deck faster. You have really good selection. You just go into level 1, into level 2, into level 3. You play the Suisse healer as well. It feels like it moves so much better than just seeing what happens when
Whatever
you
this
trigger
abomination
standby.
is.
I think you can jam Gura at the end of a lot of different things. You can play it with Kanata, you can play it with Cali, you can play it with standby. The thing is, when triple Gura hits the board, you can die from like 2/2.
Yeah.
The statistic I always bring up is that triple Gura has a 25% chance raw at something like 6 or 7 and 30 of killing you outright from 2-0, like 14 damage straight. And the second you cancel a single swing for 3 or 4 on 1 or 2, it exponentially rises to like 40% or something like that chance to die. So like things are bad when you're getting hit by triple Gura. So but then again, double Gura relatively livable, single Gura who cares. The deck is susceptible to like eating like garbage early because it doesn't really manage its deck state on purpose. Because it wants to be level 3 first.
Yeah.
I don't know. Gura itself is just gross, but I don't know how we want to evaluate it. I think a lot of like people who like playing Weiss Schwarz and people who are good players like playing Weiss Schwarz don't like playing Gura. So based on that, I would put it in expect the top 8 alongside Avatar. They're the same deck.
Yeah. The same deck.
Yeah, I think the one knock on Gura is that 12 tops, but only 1 win. It doesn't convert from top 8 to winning the event necessarily. Hololive as a set had 6 wins. But 8 Standby had 1 win, Kanata had 1 win, and Gura had 1 win. Like, so the conversion from top 8 to winning the whole thing is I think Gura's potential sticking point because it runs into it doesn't handle the other best stuff in the meta as well as it handles Swiss and even just like even like a top 8 kind of a bracket. 8 Standby, 5 tops, 4 top 4s, and a win. Did the Alice ban change anything for 8 Standby, or is it just also in the expect to top 8 kind of window?
I think that deck has 2 wins.
8 Standby?
Really?
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Because Jimmy had one recently in France, and I know it had one at the very beginning of the year, also in Europe.
Oh.
So I would put
That's
in
definitely
expects to
good.
be a world's contender because I know people are playing that.
It's very interesting because this well now it's kind of actually in the meta it's ripe for, but it's funny that people were playing this like when Alice was at its height because 8 Standby Hololive was like a targeted deck for the post Alice meta. At least the way that I always saw it being like played and why it was being chosen overseas. It's very interesting that it was played a lot beforehand. I know Jason did his deck tech, kind of gassed up the deck too. People might have not been aware of it playing it. Deck does feel really fun to play too. The Neo is like the most insane card ever. When you're playing this deck, you feel like you have all the power in the world when you play that card to the board.
Yeah, the other 8 Standby list that won was an Oski Choco in Austria back in September. So yeah, the
Choco.
8 Standby had 2 wins. Yeah, Oski Polka had 1 and Oski Choco had the other. Yeah, no, I have no issues with it being in S tier. I would also put Gura in the S tier, but like I think that 8 Standby belongs there. That makes sense to me.
It's a lot of Luna in the other deck, so a similar core.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kanata Marine.
My favorite of the Hololive build.
Yeah. Kanata Marine to Kanata Gura. Like Kanata X, honestly. Like Kanata thing.
Yeah, and we can treat it as Kanata X. I have no issues with that. Like Marine is, Marine's more consistent, but it doesn't have as high of a ceiling. Gura can kill from 2-0, but it's a little easier to whiff because of how expensive its effects are.
We're not ordering these tiers, are we?
No.
Okay.
Not really, no.
I was gonna say if we were Kanata, there needs to be a big space.
Yeah, right.
Kanata.
Right.
Kanata needs to be farther to the left, in my opinion. But no, that's fine. We're not ordering.
Then we're also missing, the double door build for Hololive, and I would consider that
we're kind of encroaching on the time limit real quick, so I think we should go through this bottom line and like quickly remove the D tier stuff to save time because there are some heavy hitting things down here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to mention one thing about Review Starlight. The movie is like the 104th highest rated thing on my anime list, and you should all go watch it. It's a great movie.
I still need to watch it. I love the franchise. Yeah. I love that like it's like a 10 of light. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know why Bushra gives it the short end of the stick in Weiss Schwarz. It
You could
deserves
put
so
you
much
could
more.
put Dragon Maid in D
No,
tier.
you
It's
can't.
fine.
No, you can't.
You
No,
can
you
put it
can't.
there.
No, you
All
can't.
right, we'll let Colton defend it. All right,
100% will defend it. All right. Dragon Maid didn't get played. No one played it.
Right.
That's not the set's fault. Set has answers for everything. Set has
Well-
access to its tech. Set has perfect fixing in the 8-bar list because you run 4 copies of the CX Stitch. Level 1 is easy to loop, and the level 3 top end is one of the top 3 in the game.
Well, doesn't that make it unlikely to top worlds if no one played it? Checkmate.
If someone plays it, it's got a shot.
Hey, it's a super
You're gonna have
surprise.
to qualify.
Yeah.
If a good player takes Dragon Maid anywhere, they can win the whole thing.
You got 8 hours. You got like 12 hours to get to Anaheim.
Well,
No, it has a lot of actually.
It'd be C.
Semi-serious thing about.
Yeah.
I don't think it'd be B.
It just. No, I don't think. I think C is probably like the
I
most.
think C is the most. Yeah.
Yeah. Just like one semi-serious May Dragon rebuttal thingamajiggy is that because the finisher hits for 4, that's like basically the number you need to cancel against Grow or Overlord to like not die against those decks. And I think just the increase of those types of decks means that you're like less likely to be able to land a 4 somewhere with May Dragon as well.
Yeah,
So
because
just the
like,
existence of the other 2 decks is
people-
like slightly, yeah.
people are like
you're gonna
generally trying to
play
live against that like giant
Yeah.
chunk. So like,
But you
that's
also
prioritizing
have-
compression.
But in Dragon Maid, you also have access to modular swings because you have the drop searcher that gives soul, and because it's a 3 soul base, you get to side. So you can side for 2. Like you get to
Right.
choose
Dragon
your
Maid
damage
cards
in Dragon,
just
and you
don't
have top
have
check
tech.
tools to make sure you always get your burn ones.
Very good. I like that take from Steve. The Dragon Maid cards just don't have text though. There are a few with really strong text, but that's it.
Yeah. It's more of something
Alright.
else on those cards than like, sometimes.
Hey, stand by
Mushoku?
Mushoku. I love this deck.
I mean, I think having the tap counter means it's back.
Does it? I
I
still
don't
think
think
it's
played
D.
that deck.
too.
Nah, I think it's. I played that deck when it became unrestricted at my locals in JP, and like, it was shocking how unreliable it felt compared to like when it was just restricted.
You know,
That
I still
is-
don't
that's
see
similar
reasons
to
why
my
not
one
to play
local,
Nino's
actually.
ahead of it.
New Nino is crazy, actually. Like saying it's the worst of the Quince decks is like such a weird thing to say because that deck's nuts. I love like checking the top 2 of my deck 3 times in a single lane. The ability for it to like ramp out standbys is like even more disgusting than the thin and like hit a bunch of Erises out with the lanes that we used to say was very consistent. Now it's like we're on a whole nother level these days.
Mm-hmm.
I think the number of turns you get per turn, per game, has like probably decreased by 1 on average, and Mushoku really valued that 1 extra turn because your top end is so expensive. So that probably is a big blow to Mushoku.
Yep. Well, and I think that's the same issue that Overlord has, is that Overlord also kind of needs that extra turn, and because it wants to go to level 2 in its first deck, it can just get slammed with damage all game long. It's clocking itself ridiculously. Like, there's a reason Overlord didn't win an event other than the one where it was played where it wasn't legal. And it's because it does not handle damage rush at all. Azure Lane is gonna punk Overlord.
Overlord is Kanatamarine. Got the same problems. But the same
Overlord's
strengths.
worth Kanatamarine, I think.
Crazy strength. I don't think it's worse. I think it's different. I think they're both very similar decks. I would put them. I don't know. I would put them next to each other. I think we'll see Overlord in top 8. I think that's very likely.
Pretty good.
Man, it doesn't even average 1 top 8 per event.
No, its rep to top ratio is literally 0.77.
I guess based on that, I guess it has to be chance instead of expect.
Yeah, like it's
stats.
Like it hasn't been around as long as it needs to really get like a really good set of data. But like if someone takes Overlord to 2 worlds and it has to get through 6 rounds of Hololive and Quince and Slime, I don't think it's going to make it. I just don't think it can. I don't think it can hang with all those decks for 6 rounds in a row.
I think it can hang. I think it's a lot of it is you know, in the past, especially this deck coming to English. I do think Overlord does have mechanical intricacies that are unique to the deck that
It's
you know,
pretty-
typically takes NA a little bit longer to wrestle with. But
I recently played games with the 2016 Japanese Nationals winner list of Monogatari, and through playing that list, I kind of got the tempo of how I meant to play Overlord. So I would like mildly suggest that if you don't really understand,
I assume that's
just like the speed at which
that's
you
like
go through the deck.
Kanakawa, like that.
Yeah,
deck?
yeah.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's similar. Like you don't have a level 1 combo. You have to land your quote unquote like end game stuff at the end of your first deck at level 2, and you
Mhm.
play Dorgobar, and like don't look at the whole 4 cards, or like you even look at 0 sometimes with your top 4 cards. Like all
That
that
makes
sort of
a lot
stuff
of
kind
sense,
of
actually.
clicked a lot more.
It's really interesting.
Once
Yeah.
I play with color, so I would give that a try if you kind of just want to play a bit more Overlord, but get the hang of it, I guess.
So we're coming down the stretch here. Sword Art with Alice being pretty much dead. Alice did not top after the ban.
Yep.
I think
Deck's dead. Taking out bags.
SAO players are trying to pivot. Does pivoting to Mother's Rosario matter?
I think
Can
that
it
if
get-
they
What
could
do you do at level
reliably,
2?
well, I was gonna say if they had the cards to reliably play the Yuna engine with the Act Filter package, that deck was actually extremely powerful. For
Yeah.
a very short period of time before Alice caught on, that's actually what won Worlds, right?
Mhm.
Or
Yes.
WGP, yeah, won Worlds. Was like a Yuna Mother's Rosario
Yes.
mix deck, and like those were very
Mhm.
strong, but a lot of them hinged exclusively on Val10's LN cards that were like multifunctional cards that help you win board as well as filter your hand.
Yeah.
It's like an act package card. We do not have those in English, and let me tell you, I love that deck. I tried so hard to build that deck in English, and every single build falls apart without that package. It doesn't work. So it's probably Rogue. I don't think the deck's bad. Yeah.
I guess you'll go have to play Chinese WS because I think that's what's coming out in Chinese.
Yeah, China. Yeah, Chinese WS. I just slam it in Rogue tier. I don't think it's bad. It's definitely a cut above the stuff that we have in D. There could be a pile that someone comes up with.
Yeah, I think that sounds reasonable. Sword Art also just has a bunch of good cards, and at the end of the day, when you have a massive card pool and a bunch of profiles that just read well, you can do something with it. SDS had one of the best rep to top conversion rates in all of BCS. 8 tops, 4 top 4s, no wins, but it took 3.7% representation and it turned it into 5.6% of all tops. I think we have to put it in B. Like, Escanor is not dead.
Yeah, I respect that.
Yeah, I think it has a chance to top.
Where's
again,
Hendrickson,
think-
man?
Escanor.
I
I think
think
Escanor also is like one of those decks where you have double Escanor plus 1 swing on the 3rd lane, and that one swing sticking, like whether or not that one swing sticks or not, is like pretty game defining most of the time. And that one swing is like quite often like a 4, which again is the number you want to cancel against Grow or Overlord. So
That's why you need to play Handy's
Still a bit-
Tandies, man. You need Stock Soul Pants. No, get this Escanor guy out of here. Gotta play Hendrickson. Burn 4. Bait Seal, Burn 4. Easy.
the Escanor
haven't
left
seen
had
that
all
run around.
4 of the set's top 4s. There were 3 top 8s. I think all those were Hendrickson.
I think we'll just chuck it in B though.
Yeah,
That's
I think
fair.
B's about right. TRV.
The D.
It's always
if
a
anybody plays
landmine.
that,
Yeah, D.
I'm assuming this is a dual lane build, right?
Oh yeah.
That was the dual
Yeah.
laners list.
I think in a Worlds environment where you don't have a single person in that room that isn't quote unquote in the know, this deck completely falls off. Like
Yeah.
this deck's win rate into a field of any amount of ignorance to its strategy versus, like, I'm talking any amount. Like I'm talking like extremely low percentage. It needs only a small percentage of ignorance to be able to run wild. But
Yeah.
the second people are aware, the win rate of this deck drops off dramatically.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it doesn't have it's gonna struggle into just enough things. And like you said, um, people know it's a thing now. People know it's a gimmick, and that's gonna give it a hard. That's gonna make it difficult for the TRV player in a high level environment. And it only got one top over the course of BCS, and that's in normal regionals, it only got one top. Like I think that says a lot. And then finally, slime. We got 3 minutes left. What are we? What are we doing with slime?
Number
Straight
one.
to the top.
Straight to the top.
Yeah.
Clinton's right here.
Right?
Spectavian Worlds, yeah. Right here. I mean, okay, what do you guys actually think of this slime ban? Like, I was kind of like, okay, like, we gotta, like, deck build a little bit now, but, like, in practice, with thinking about it, like, for another minute past that, it's, like, pretty ineffective.
It devastated me because I had to take out $2,000 from my deck and replace it with $50.
River, my world's smallest violin.
Like I told Steven, I'm like, I know this is the worst complaint in the history of complaints, but this feels really bad.
Well, you get to put in the standby combo. I don't know what you like to play. I'm kind of between empty pants and standby. I think the standby version is actually really unique.
Yeah, the standby pants is really unique. Right now, I'm just going Unga Bunga with the Tuso into the
Tuso. Yeah. I was gonna
mention
that too.
That's a real deck.
No way.
Right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's literally just slam. Do you play the Xion for like any handback at all, or do you just slam it and you're just like, I don't care?
I was thinking of it, but I just couldn't. I haven't been able to find space yet.
Yeah, I think that's the problem with all, like, especially if you try to jam Mask into these like post ban decks. I feel like you like lose all your
The best thing about
slots.
the ban list is it finally gives you so many open things to play where the options are almost infinite.
I really think the standby pants stuff is like super unique because I was thinking about that like when the set came out in Japanese, that standby pants would be cool, but 8 pants was just like so easy to just throw together and play. Because standby pants, you get the cool, like you get to actually pull out the Shuna at 1. You get like, your whole board is 7/5 now. Any additional standbys you hit, like if you happen to, like play a standby and then hit a standby on your twin drives, you get a Murin to front row at 1. Like there's like some nutty stuff that can happen on the high roll.
Yeah.
But like, with every hybrid standby deck you introduce inconsistency.
You basically trade, needing a very set amount of stock to get the game plan going in the middle for like a less damage consistency from, double 1K1s in the past.
But yeah, I think it's that. I don't know. Does 8 standby Hololive even make sense to leave an S with slime up there? Does 8 standby Hololive have to move down? I guess it can stay. In unorder, but it feels wrong. I feel like slime is like the uncontested top dog going into Worlds. I feel like it's a bit disingenuous to have 8 standby Hololive there. I think it should probably move down with the rest of the Hololive decks.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I feel like it's just slime up there. Slime stands alone. Nice ban list.
All the bans did feel like they were done in that way because they announced it at that specific timing.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
I feel like if they did it 3 months later, it would have been a bit harsher.
Yeah, I remember in Toronto at the beginning of the season, I was sitting at the table with all the other people who cash buy cards. It's like Roy and a couple other people, and we were all like, if they don't ban all these quote-unquote big decks out at the same time, the meta's going to look real wonky, and like that's where we're at right now. It's a really wonky meta. It's like when Gura's still around, but Slime is neutered, and Overlord is full power, and all this other stuff is still here, but Alice is gone. We're in like a weird romper room kind of meta that doesn't make any sense, but here we stand.
Yep. Like if I had qualified for Worlds here, I probably would have no idea what I'd want to take. So it's
weirdly open, but also Slime is there, looming, staring at you.
All right. So we have a tier list, which means that this is definitively how good everything is. No room for debate. because we have it figured out. So thank you guys for joining us for this. Zabaton and Carmen, you guys wanted to join us for Family Feud, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sounds
I'd
hilarious.
love to.
All right. So
Well,
I think
right. Yep. We're gonna get ready to transition to that. With that, thank you, Clinton, for joining us for this time frame and being part of this and helping us realize how great slime is.
wow.
Hey,
Yes,
somebody
thank
had
you.
to defend it for the past 2 years.
Right. Right. Had to be the slime apologist to us all, and now we've finally realized the error of our ways.